I'm now gonna tell you a little bit more about actually some of the things that you might know already about, like the global food tech map. You found a little pamphlet on your seat that explains what this product is all about. It's actually our endeavor to raise awareness about this space, the agri-food tech space, which we built about 9 months ago. We are at version 4. We started with about 300 plus companies, and then we grew it now to about 1,700 plus. With the idea that, you know, with a free tool, we could have mapped in some of the companies that are out there, and really, you know, eliminate any barrier for people to go and see what are the solutions out there. How did we do it? It's very simple. We gather some data ourselves. Then, as I mentioned earlier, we partner up with a few leading organizations all over the world that have a way better understanding of their local ecosystems. And we put all the data into that map that you saw earlier. This is still going to be our commitment here is to really keep on developing it. In the last version that we released about 4 months ago, we added actually a couple of features that now allow any intended users to request direct introductions to the businesses that are featured on the map. Again, with the idea of creating as many connections as we can. And also they can be added on their favorite list to also keep track of their development. But then building on effectively what Chris has shared, we try to kind of encapsulate his definition into the broader space of agri-food tech. So now we're also adding, I guess, an extra layer related to all the technologies that are relevant for the agri sector. As we get actually these kind of questions all the time, it's like, what the hell is food tech, right? It's like hot dog, not hot dog, which is basically a food pun taken from Silicon Valley movie. But then we kind of tried to came up with this broader definition that awfully, and again this is a heavy revolving one, captures what is happening at a technology level at a broader, in a broader sector. So we came up with the agri-food tech is the emerging sector exploring how technology can be leveraged to improve efficiency and sustainability in designing, producing, choosing, delivering, and enjoying food. And the reason why we added also sustainability in there is that, and we had a lot of conversation, you know, with our team back and forth, is because we believe sustainability now is business critical and is not something that can be left out of a definition. So, but then thanks also to Chris, we have taken also the enjoying, we have added the enjoying food bit, because I was really fascinated to hear his latest version of the definition, as it really, I think, goes well beyond, you know, just eating food. You know, now with all the digital side of things, we actually interact also with food beyond just having a meal, I guess. So it really goes actually to the thought side of things. And then, yeah, so this is the definition, the global food tech map that I mentioned earlier. Now what we're trying to do is basically to provide an example of each of the macro categories that we came up with, these 8 categories that you see here, to really kind of put into context, you know, what are actually startups and companies out there developing. So I'm going to start, and you know, I've taken them in sort of random order in terms of, you know, there's no agenda behind any of the company that we feature in here. But basically, it was just to really give an idea of what are the solutions that also as consumers, you know, and products that as consumers we can now buy. So for the smart appliances and kitchen, we picked Smarter, which is actually a company based in London. What they've built is a smart fridge camera that helps you to see what's in your fridge anywhere you are through an app. That again, if I reflected back to the definition that I mentioned, that I showed you earlier, is basically creating efficiency in terms of you know, giving you the ability not to, you know, waste food, as you can see real time, you know, what's in your fridge. But it's also related to the sustainability side of things, as you can actually purchase a lot more sustainably than you could have done before. Then on the what we call next generation food and drinks, and again take all these definitions and categories that we came up with a pinch of salt, as we don't think have the answers either. We have been part of this space for a while, and we think that we now have gained enough insights to also try to make sense of it. But for instance, with next generation food and drinks, it spans from lab-grown meat, like this company called Higher Steaks is actually UK's first lab-grown meat company. They're super early stage, but they basically identified a way to grow meat into labs. So it's called in vitro lab meat, really. But it also spans from all the synthesization of protein that could replace, for instance, sugar. If you take particular, for instance, fruits, and you basically distill proteins out of it, and anything in between, really. So it's mostly related to the biotech side of FoodTech, which is kind of a plain words, but I'm sure you understood what I meant. Then we go into what we call food safety and traceability. So this is a company, again, it's London-based. I think I'm a little bit biased by now, but I know quite a few of them now here. And Meetup Lab has developed this smart packaging that actually allows consumers to understand if a product is reaching the expiry date by creating bumps on the packaging. So instead of just relying on the date that is written on the label, you can actually feel whether the product inside the container, whatever the material is made of, actually is reaching the expiring date, because it's when they build the packaging, they actually spark a chemical reaction to whatever is in the packaging, and that cannot be basically changed. This is also to, again, going back to the definition, is really to help create efficiencies, so reducing food waste, but also is to produce packaging also more sustainably, as you can now basically relabel it and then resell it. Well, these are, I guess, some of the heroes of sustainability in a way. So Snacked, they developed, fruit jerkies, but also I guess UK's first compostable packaging. They actually got the packaging from an Israeli company, but they were the first one, I think, to adopt it in the UK, at least as a snack brand. Toastale, which is one of our sponsors, and you will get to try their beers later, they actually turn unsold bread into beer using a very simple process, which I think has been there for a while. But they're all actually, they all developed proprietary technologies that also put them on a competitive, the competitive advantage is also on the AP side. So it's not, although they deal with food and they create a product, they are tech heavy, and that also goes back to my former point about getting the techies excited about, for instance, brewing beer in a different way. And then these are just some numbers, because these guys have been in business for a while. So to give you an idea, they've saved 5 tons of food snacked alone as a small business, really. And then about 40% of all bread produced in the UK is actually wasted every year, which is an humongous amount of bread. And although Toast started very small and using actually consistent bread that they were taking from a food manufacturer, they're now scaling their launch in the US, so I guess by now they can really make a dent in solving the food waste issue. Then going into ag tech here, is a whole new world and a whole new sector that kind of needs to be treated by on its own. But there are things like adding effectively smart sensors into any farm. These guys at Circuit, they actually detect animals using cameras, and so they can actually, again, similar to what the smarter solution allows you to look into your fridge. Here you can actually look into your farm and then detect also the animals that are actually sick. But even this one is actually one of my favorite. These guys have developed a supplement for cows, which sounds, like I guess it's a crazy idea, but effectively this supplement can reduce up to 30% of the methane that cows release. So, methane is one of the biggest contributors to CO2 emission, at least in farming. If you try to solve effectively the issue at the source, meaning reducing the amount of methane that cows can release, I think is a pretty interesting solution. And then we have, on the food processing side, Better Juice. They found a way to actually take out sugar from juices using a patented technology that they developed themselves. And last but not least, we actually have Almond, which you will get to taste their product and I guess give it a go with their technology. But they built a blockchain-based application. It's one of our members of the Innovation Hub. So I'll take the bias here of having put this aside. But they've developed basically this application to showcase the trustability of the supply chain for B Corp brands to begin with. And you will get to try their product Fact later, which also actually carries their technology. So you will see their cans over there, and there is a QR code that you can just use to actually download the app and then see actually how it works. Then we have Ollie actually here sitting in the front row as the founder, and you can grab him and chat with him. Then on the food waste era side, Too Good To Go. I think most people now are familiar with it, although when we met them about 2.5 years ago, I remember they were struggling themselves to figure out how to scale this model. Now it looks like they've cracked it, and it's basically an application that helps consumers to find food that would be thrown away otherwise from restaurants and picking it up from these restaurants at a discounted price. They've saved over 2 million meals as they now operate in about, I think, 8 or 9 countries. And they have onboarded about 7,000 store and restaurants that have joined their program. And then last but not least, Farm Drop, again, is on the food delivery side of things, but it's basically direct to consumer or from farm to pantry sort of model that delivers effectively fresh products to your doorstep. The food is sourced within 150 miles, and farmers, basically they cut out the middleman so they can pay a fairer price to the farmers. The delivery service is 100% done with electric vehicle, and again it goes back to the sustainability point that we try to encapsulate in the definition too. But we did talk about a big announcement. I guess you all came down in a way for this. So I'm actually really excited because we spent about almost a year figuring out how we could have built something that we could have given away to everyone to make sense about this space somehow. And I think the Global FoodTech Map helped us to do that, but we wanted to go a step farther. So we did do a lot of digging into our own databases to really figure out, what data was good, what was not, and we are kind of a tech company in a way, as we use a very, I guess, data-driven approach to make decisions in general. But basically, without further ado, I guess I wanted to share with you that as of today, we're going to be launching what we call the FoodTech Data Navigator, which is nothing but a collective data intelligence tool that helps users to build their own data intelligence. And so the whole kind of thinking process we went through was we could have created something that everybody could buy as a product, right? But then we understood that all the players in the ecosystem have very different needs, right? If you look at entrepreneurs, they're probably looking to get to know who are the investors in this space, what are the other companies that are developing maybe similar solutions, and they might just want to focus on kind of engaging with those type of players in the ecosystem, right? When you look at corporates, they might be looking at startups and accelerators that they could use to basically source some of these innovations. So I think the kind of thinking that went into it was, how can we build something that is fully customizable to the needs of all the players in the ecosystem? And so I'm going to go now and try to give you a live demo, which I'm sure something is going to go wrong. So bear with me as we basically, I mean, I tried it multiple times, but with tech, sometimes is not always predictable what is going to happen. It looks like it worked. So this is actually the dashboard. This is our own, but then I'm just going to give you a quick demo, but it was just, as I mentioned earlier, effectively, you could look at this with the eyes of then customizing it the way you need it in terms of driving the insights that you're looking to get. So effectively, it now captures, so this is the home page, and it captures some of the database that we built ourselves and we cleaned up only with objective information. And I'll tell you why I'm making this point, because there is a difference between the data set that we own and we built internally and the one that we actually crawled from the web. So it's data that is available out there that we then enrich our own database with. But this is basically the home page. Here you can see on the left hand side you have news feeds. So again, is basically what is relevant in terms of news in this ecosystem. So there is an algorithm behind it that effectively crunches data and puts the news that are most relevant for you. So it tracks your behavior as you interact with the dashboard, and then it only basically shows you what it should be more relevant depending on what you clicked on. Then announcements are things that have happened, in the last few months in this ecosystem, and again is also all customizable. Then there is something very similar to the global FoodTech map. The only difference is you see different colors that represent the different players of the ecosystem that we have captured, which I'll tell you in a second who they are. And here are the latest updates on the actors. So for instance, here you can see if Up22, which is a Tel Aviv company, has updated something on their website, or all the information that are out there that we crowd, then it will pop up basically in this part of the dashboard. Then here is trends and insights. So his latest funding rounds, you can see what's been featured on the news as far as startups or any player that we capture in this database. And then you can learn about effectively what are the latest funding rounds that have been raised. And for instance, BioBean, which is a company also based in the UK, they just raised, as of April the 25th, 4.6 million. So you basically get notified about what has been happening in your ecosystem. And then last but not least, as we basically capture quite a lot of data about all these companies, we're actually capable of identifying what were the most significant changes as far as web is concerned, so web traffic as well as social media, on each of those companies. So for instance here, you can see that Tyson Foods is getting web traffic, so maybe they're doing something right now that is allowing them to basically get all this traction. But also you can see that Bytemojo is gaining Facebook traction. So this becomes an insight as an entrepreneur to understand what your competitor is doing, as a VC fund to understand who they should be looking at as you're gaining traction. But then really quickly, the list view effectively showcases all the data that we're now capturing. So as of now, we have 2,646 actors that we have captured. This includes effectively all these categories: accelerators, business angel and investor, company, by company we mean startups, enabler, entrepreneur, investor, and other. And you see the different colors represent effectively all these categories. If, for instance, we take out people, which are basically individual investor who have invested in some of the businesses that we featured on the map, then we go down to 2,300. If we then only want to see, for instance, the company that we have in there, then we further filter effectively using these filters here. But then, this is where it becomes collaborative. So we build these portfolio features to effectively help, again, whoever is going to use it, which are usually either, as I mentioned, entrepreneurs, VC, investment managers, accelerator managers, is to then share some of the data that they have access to through this dashboard, internally or externally. So the way it looks like, let's say that we're only interested in London-based companies, and this actually captures, as you can see here, not only the companies but also the investors. Then you could go on the sharing side of things, and you can decide whether you want to do it privately, meaning you want to share it with your team or whoever you want to see this information, or you can share it also externally for exploring or for benchmarking purposes. So this becomes particularly helpful for investors or accelerator managers if they want to compare their portfolio with other portfolios. But also if they need other people to, for instance, score some of these businesses or add comments on some of them, they can just do it effectively from here. And that's where we start adding a layer of personalization and customization to the whole experience. But then the other interesting thing is that if we go back to all actors, so the 2,600 actors, we can actually run analysis on the ecosystem, at the ecosystem level. So this is how the data set has been split now. So it's about 1,341 companies, 987 investors, and by investors we mean effectively funds, or funds of funds, and then business angels and accelerator. Then you can see the split across the cities, the employee size, so whether they are, super small companies or very large, and how many employees effectively they've got, the evolution of funded companies, and the evolution of raised capital, and again at the ecosystem level. But you can also drill this down to the companies. So let's say that you only want to look what the data set looks like, then you can further filter it to just basically exclude all the other information that you're not interested in. And then the maturity and the go-to-market strategy. So these are all the data that we believe are objective, like the go-to-market strategy or the business model can change, but the chances are that it's going to remain the same, right? Then there are another set of data, including all the funding of each company, that we actually crawl from the web. Because we believe that is a little bit subjective. I mean, it's not something that we have validated ourselves. It's information that is out there and is available, but we can't guarantee effectively that is accurate. And so there, you can basically see for each company how much funding they've raised, how many rounds they've undertaken, and then again you can run analysis on each of them and benchmark them towards other companies. If we, for instance, go and look for a specific company, let's take Impossible Food, for instance, of which I have to say I'm a big fan of. Here again, you see all the information about the company, so business model, so all the objective information that we capture. But then you also see a lot of the information that we scrap from the web, including, for instance, their funding round, right? Who has invested in each of the rounds. And that's where I think it becomes also quite insightful and interesting. Because if, for instance, we look at the investor for each single company, we're able to get the information to a detail that not only allows us to understand who are the backers of this business, like, these guys, I don't know if you're new, but Bill Gates, for instance, invested in Impossible Food. But then when I click on Bill Gates, I can also see what are the other companies that Bill Gates has invested in. For instance, I see that he has invested in Beyond Meat and Memphis Meat, which are in the same space. So here, again, for an investment manager or even for an entrepreneur, it's really insightful to understand who are the people that they should be targeting as entrepreneur or as investors, who they should be co-investing in, as they might have gained effectively enough knowledge about that specific space by investing in some of these businesses. And then this goes on for each company effectively, where we have data available from crawling it from the web. Then going back really quickly on some of also the beta features, I have to say, we're still testing them as we speak. But here we basically also capture the buzz on social media. So we take the whole ecosystem, we basically get all the data about their Twitter, Facebook handles, and then we run analysis on the whole ecosystem. So what has been trending, for instance, in the last month? All this data, all this data crunching is done with the last 30 days over social media. So let's take, for instance, AI, and these are hashtags. Then if you click on AI, you can actually see what are the hashtags that actually make up AI as a macro sort of hashtag, and who are the key influencers in that ecosystem. So if I zoom in here, I can see that the bigger effectively the dot, this is Omega Venture Partners. These guys have tweeted and created quite a lot of posts about adding AI as some of the positives shared out there. So it means that they have an interest, potentially, in further investing in the space. So these are effectively who are the key influencers for each of those actually topics. And then when you look at it at the topic level again, you can also see what are the interconnected keywords attached to the macro topic. Then if we go back here, timeline, it just shows again the thicker, the more frequent effectively has been used. And then these are the very beta one. We do the exact same job at a company level. So what we're trying to do there is we've used a number of different variables to give a digital score to each of those companies. And then we plot them on this graph to basically see how fast they're growing. So it will be the right-hand side of the graph. And you see here, for instance, S2V Ventures, which is a venture fund in the Bay Area, they've grown 53.4% in the last month. And that is a combination of social media and web traffic. So what that allows us to do is to basically identify who are the front runners in terms of companies or investors, or who is basically kind of lagging behind, which are the ones here who have been even quite quiet, let's say, on social media, or they haven't been that active, let's say. And then we rank them as well as we give them basically a score. But it's all basically machine learning. We don't do this manually. And then we can also see the evolution. So you can see that, I don't know, for instance, Deliveroo, as it started over the last few months. So here you see the whole timeline with 100, and now has gotten to 99.98. So of course it needs to be normalized depending on the size of the business. But this is really to show the evolution, and then basically identify companies that are growing fast or not growing that fast. And we do the exact same thing with business size. So we track the number of employees through, again, external data. And we are basically able to identify the same sort of insights. And we've built the exact same thing, evolution and ranking, on the back of that. So that's pretty much it. Then the map view is very similar to the global FoodTech map. It's just the difference here is that the data set is way bigger. But then the discovery tool is very similar. You can learn everything about a specific company, like I showed basically earlier. So back to the presentation, just super quickly, effectively on datanavigator.forwardfooding.com. As of now, you can actually go and learn more about the tool. I've taken just some screenshots of the demo that I just given you, and then on the website you see some of the stuff that I just showed you, just explaining further details. By the finding round, the social media and buzz monitoring, And as of today, effectively, we're gonna open it up to beta testers. We only have 10 seats left, 10 seats that we're gonna release. The product is gonna go live officially in early June. But if anyone is interested in getting a free demo and just getting to play with the tool, we're going to offer a 14 days free trial of the platform on the back of the live demo. And you can go and see Leslie from our team to just express your interest, and then we'll get in touch by email. But that was really it. Now we're gonna thank you. That's my email. If in case anyone wants to reach out, we're always here. That's my email. Just drop me a line, and we'll be happy to talk you through some of this stuff.